All right, guys, lecture number 4, and this will wind up the executive branch. Okay, so you guys can look for an assignment on here to ask 2 questions, and then, of course, page 84, which would be worth 16 points that you can do as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Electoral College here a little bit, which has been really scrutinized the last few years, really since 2016, quite a bit, since Hillary won the popular vote and Donald Trump won the Electoral College vote. And so just going to kind of look at that, how that works. You already know this mostly. And then maybe some positives, negatives, and then some alternatives to the Electoral College that some people have proposed over the years. Okay, so you guys remember this, the equal number of votes, senators plus representatives. We have 4 members of the House based on population in Kansas, and 2 senators. We have 6 electoral college votes. Okay, so there's 435 plus 100 plus 3 for DC. Remember the 23rd Amendment, 538. Okay, in order to win, how many you need? 270. Okay, if nobody gets a majority, we'll talk about what happens there. Okay. So the college meets Monday after the second Wednesday in December. So the election is on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November on even-numbered years, every 4 years. And then after the votes are tallied in the states, the actual electors that you're choosing, so for Kansas it would be 6 Republican electors or 6 Democrat electors or 6 Libertarians. So 48 of the 50 states, it's winner take all. So if you win 51% of the vote in Kansas, you get all 6 electors. There are those 2 states, Nebraska and Maine, that divide up their electors into districts. Okay, so the Nebraska has 5 districts, Maine has 4. Okay, and you get 1 elector for each one of those districts that you win. Okay, those are the only 2 states that do that. The rest of us are winner take all. You win by 1 more vote in California, you get all 55. Okay, so they will meet on this Wednesday in December to actually cast their vote in Washington, D.C. Okay, so they'll literally travel there. Okay, on January 6th, the President of the Senate, who of course is the Vice President, counts the votes in front of Congress. You need 270, not just the most. Okay, that would be a plurality. We don't have that here. Okay, but if there is a plurality, then the House of Representatives is going to elect the President. Okay, that's happened twice. In 1800 and 1824, Thomas Jefferson and John Quincy Adams were both elected by the House. So this is how it works. Kansas, okay, we have 6 electoral college votes. Now, the House, we have 4 of, right, plus 2 for the senators. Okay, well, these 4 House members, 3 of them are Republican, 1 is a Democrat. Okay, Kansas gets 1 vote in the House of Representatives. Okay, and obviously the 3 Republicans would outman the 1 Democrat, and Kansas, as a state, their 6 electors would go to the Republican. Does that make sense? So in California, where there are 55. Okay, and let's say 35 are Democrats and 20 are Republicans. Over here, okay, California would cast its vote most likely for the Democratic candidate. Okay, and whoever wins 26 states wins. Okay, that's how that can happen. Now, the Electoral College, like I said, that's happened twice. The proverbial question is, what if it's a tie? 25 states to 25 states. Well, this is what happens. The outgoing vice president, okay, I have that right here. If the House can't decide, the vice president then will act as president until a decision is made. Okay, now that's kind of an unfair advantage. If you have the vice president running, he gets to stay and be president until they break that tie vote. Okay, so conceivably, possibly, that could last an entire 4 years for another election. It's never happened, but it could. All right. Let's say it's a tie within the state. Well, they're going to have to, the other states will vote, and hopefully you get to 26. and then we know who wins. In that other state, they're going to have to try and break their tie vote, but maybe their vote won't matter because there's already 26 states that have chosen one or the other. Okay, those are questions that usually come up in class. Okay, all right. So what are some of the positives of this? Okay, guys, you have to remember the reason why the founders chose this. When we talked about the Constitutional Convention, there were some members of the convention that wanted to do a popular vote, and some people that wanted Congress to elect the president, like a parliamentary system. But neither one of those were acceptable by the other, so what did they do? They compromised on the Electoral College. And one of the reasons why people wanted Congress to do it is because they feared an ignorant electorate, people that don't pay attention, that don't really understand what's going on in Washington, which is not you, because you are finishing up your honors government class and you know more than you did when you came in for sure. Even if you're not doing great in this class, you're a lot more educated than you were. But anyhow, one of the major factors here is it forces a candidate to have support over the whole country, not just regions of the country. Okay, so I've got some maps pulled up. I've got 2000, 2008, and 2016. Okay, we'll start with 2000. This is 2000. Okay, and so you can see here, Bush. This is one of the closest ones, and I talked about this, how it kind of came down to Florida. In Broward County, where they're having trouble with the Chads, the hanging Chads, the dimpled Chads, and all that. Okay, but if you look at this map, Bush wins. Okay, now he won a lot more states than Gore did. Okay, but he had support from a wide swath of the country. Okay, and that allowed him to win. All right, but Gore is very close here with just kind of regions of the country, if you see what I mean. Just regions of the country. The Northeast, the Great Lakes, and the left coast. Okay? So if you move forward to 2008, and this is Obama's victory over McCain, what did Obama do? To win, he expanded the map to include more parts of the country. All right, so not just the Northeast and the Great Lakes, this expanded, okay, into states like Indiana, which are traditionally Republican, over here, into the South, okay, North Carolina, and of course Florida's huge, okay, also growing here in the West, okay, not just the coast, but more larger part of the West, okay. So how did Trump win in 2016, okay? So if you look here, obviously a lot more states than Hillary, okay, but the popular vote went to her. So most of the population winding up in states like California and New York here, she got more votes in these states, okay, so she won the popular vote, but guess what? It doesn't matter, all right? President Trump broke into this region here. He kept the South, all of the South, okay? He broke in, got Ohio, and then really here, boom, boom, boom. These three states, which in previous elections, if you look at Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin have gone to the Democrat. Even when Gore lost, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, he won, okay? So that's where Trump broke in here, okay, and was able to win the election. And if you look at the Electoral College, in a pretty big margin, but not massive here, okay? So that's one of the reasons why people support the Electoral College, is because it forces that. It reduces corruption, okay? Let's say there's corruption in, let's say, Louisiana, okay? One of the most corrupt states, or Illinois, another corrupt state. Let's say there's corruption there. Well, that corruption in Illinois or Louisiana does not affect your vote in Kansas, okay? Where we have voter ID in Kansas. So you're pretty safe to say there's less, voter fraud in Kansas than there is in other states, because you have the voter ID, okay? Now, with the coronavirus, guys, one of the things people are talking about is allowing people to vote by mail. Well, you can already do that with an absentee ballot, okay? but they're talking about sending out ballots to everybody in this country. Well, a lot of these people that the ballots might be sent to are not eligible to vote. They're convicted felons. They're not citizens. They're residents. They have a green card, but they're not a citizen. These different things that people are worried about corruption with that. So we'll kind of see how that plays out, okay? Does this act as a safety net against an ignorant electorate? Because you're actually electing these electors. The people aren't actually voting. The electors are voting for president, vice president. They can switch their vote. Okay. In fact, guys, there was a movement on the part of some Hollywood folks to try and get the electors before they went to D.C. in December to change their vote away from Trump. Okay. They made an ad, and you had a bunch of famous actors and saying, you know, you're smarter than this, change your vote. Okay. It's actually kind of funny to watch, but in a sense, it could, okay? Or if something major happened that we found out before they took office, or, you know, before December, between the election in November and December 6th, or wherever that falls, some big information came out. Electors could change their vote. Now, they are not bound to those votes, so they can change their votes. In fact, in 2016, there was one elector that switched their vote. But it wasn't a Trump elector, it was a Hillary elector that switched their vote. Okay, so it's happened 9-10 times in American history, where, and I have that down here, okay, no law says an elector has to vote for a person the state voted for. I think it's 10 now, but it's never affected the outcome of an election. That could be a reason not to like the Electoral College, because that could happen, okay? All right, problems with the Electoral College. This one here, a winner of the popular vote doesn't necessarily win. This happens. This has happened, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now. Okay, Jackson didn't win the popular vote. That's Andrew Jackson, Rutherford B. Hayes, Grover Cleveland, Al Gore, and Hillary Clinton all won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College, okay? So it's not new. It's happened before. We've stayed with it, okay? Now, some people think that that it's kind of unfair because Hillary, say she got 50.4% of the vote in New York, she still got all, this would be Bill Clinton actually, Bill Clinton got all 33 Electoral College votes. Is that fair? Well, that's the state of New York went that way, okay? So the Electoral College says that states have a say in the presidential elections, okay? Now, every state's guaranteed at least one member of the House based on population, even if they don't have 750,000 people in it, they still get one, okay? So Alaska, Wyoming would be states that don't have that big of a population. They still get one. And then your 2 senators, they get 3. So the fewest a state could have is 3, okay? But there's more people in each state. There's more people per Electoral College vote in states like California and Kansas than there is in Wyoming and Alaska. Is that fair? Okay, this number would be updated to about 750,000. Okay, where Alaska and them may have one vote for quite a bit fewer people. So that means Alaska and Wyoming have a bigger say in the presidential election, conceivably here. Okay, so some people don't like that. All right, so there's some problems with the Electoral College. Okay, and the third, we just talked about this one. The third is that the election could be decided by the House. We just talked about that. Okay, where nobody gets a majority, then the House gets to choose. Okay, so you could have a 269 to 269 tie where nobody got 270, or you could have a strong third-party candidate that made it so nobody got to 270. Then the House is going to choose. Again, that was Jefferson and Quincy Adams here in 1800 and 1824. Okay, so that's kind of the Electoral College, the things that are good about it, the things that are not so good about it. Fact of the matter is, guys, if you want to change this, you're going to have to pass a constitutional amendment. And as you guys we talked about, it's very difficult to pass a constitutional amendment, okay, because many of these states are not going to want to do away with the Electoral College. All right, so it doesn't make a difference. We're going to keep this for now, okay? Unless there's, some major thing that happens that, convince people we need to change our electoral system. All right, so it's here. You're running a campaign in 2020. You know what you have to do. You got to get to 270. The popular vote does not matter, except in the state you live, okay? Period. All right, moving on. Some reforms, like if we were to change it, what could we try, okay? This would be the direct election, okay? That would be a popular vote. Good. It's democratic. No confusion. The winner with the most votes wins, okay? This does hurt small states. More than half of the population resides in 8 states. Okay, so where are Republican and Democratic candidates going to vote? They're going to vote, campaign. They're going to campaign in those big states, big populated states. They're going to ignore the rest of the country because that's where the people are. Okay, so that changes the message. Are you ever going to have a conservative ever win the presidency again for a Republican? Because in order to get those votes in those highly populated areas, you're going to have to change your message. You're going to have to become more liberal. You're going to have to move to the left. And so you'll never get another conservative elected. If you're conservative, then that's something you want to definitely think about. If you're a liberal, you're like, hey, yeah, let's go to the popular vote because it's probably going to help Democrats, okay? So individual groups could lose power and influence in their states, okay, because of a concentration of African Americans in, say, Chicago or South Carolina and so forth. That gives them a lot of pull. If you go to a popular vote, it's just one person, one vote. It doesn't really matter, okay? So in some cases, you have groups that may lose influence within their states because they don't really it doesn't really matter, okay? So that's an idea. Now, guys, corruption is a problem here. No question. You have a situation where, if a state decides they're going to allow people that are not citizens to vote, that means somebody that's not a U.S. citizen is impacting your vote in another part of the country, or canceling out your vote. You may or may not like that. Okay, you may want illegals to vote. I don't know what you think personally, but it's something to consider. Another idea is the district plan. Okay. None of these are very good, by the way. Winner state gets 2 votes, then 1 vote for every congressional district. Okay, so that would be just like your Senate is your 2 votes. So you win the popular vote in Kansas, you get 2. And then we have 4 congressional districts, and we live in the 4th. So if you win that one, you get 1. You win the 1st, you get that one. But say the other party wins the other 2, so it's 4-2 coming out of Kansas. This is similar to what Nebraska and Maine do, but they draw the number of districts of electors that they have. So they got to draw 2 more districts for their senators, if that makes sense. That's the district plan. It's more representative, so you're kind of looking at gerrymandering is going to be huge with this, okay? Because how you draw those districts is going to matter who gets those electors, okay? Bad person with the popular vote could still lose. If we did this, Nixon would have beaten Kennedy, increased gerrymandering, as I was talking about, and increased the likelihood of nobody getting a majority and it going to the House. Because this could allow third-party candidates to really get in and win some electors, okay? Concentrating in specific areas, no question, okay? The proportional plan, each candidate would receive the same share of the state's electoral vote as a percentage of the popular vote. So let's talk California. So let's say California, you have the Democrat gets 65% of the vote, the Republican gets 35% of the vote. Now you're going to divide that 55 electors up. 65% of them go here, 35% go here, and what do you have, guys? You got rounding errors. You got to round up, you got to round down. How's that going to work? Okay, I think it's a bad idea. It's good. It eliminates winner take all. So your vote. If you're in a very Democratic state and you're Republican, your vote kind of does matter, and vice versa. Okay. The loser of the popular vote could still lose because the guaranteed of 3 votes. Increase minor parties, for sure. Okay. This one's dumb. National bonus plan, add 102 college votes to whoever wins the popular vote. So if you go back here, okay, Hillary won the popular vote. You give her 102 votes. And she wins. Okay, I don't know who came up with that idea, but I found it. Okay, So that's some of the ins and outs of the Electoral College and so forth. Okay, so I will post an assignment. You can ask me 2 questions about any of the previous 4 lectures. We did the executive branch in 4 lectures in about 2 hours. Okay, so I'll space that out over this week, and we'll take a test next week, and you guys can ask me questions. Good? All right, guys, have a good week.